Same project, same team, same budget. While I was leading the department, I handed my colleague equal authority to lead her half of the project. Absolutely full authority to make the calls. But here's what happened. When we had to deliver on stage, her half collapsed while mine didn't. She had every bit of power to make the important calls that were required for the success of the project. She just didn't want the responsibility that came with it.
This is yours. You're not listening.
Welcome back to You're Not Listening, the show about the conversations we avoid, the ones we get wrong, and what happens when we have the courage to finally have them. I'm Aubin, and this is episode 6. We split this project deliberately. Same age group, same resources, same timeline. The only difference was there were way too many sections for one person to realistically run. So we decided to divide it evenly, partly out of necessity and partly out of the fact that we wanted to learn from the other person's style of work. I was the one officially leading the department, but we split authority evenly. And this was made clear to the team that was working with us right at the start of the project. So my colleague had the exact same kind of authority that I had, and the people that were working under her knew about it right at the beginning of the project. Full say, full authority. And if this was a science experiment, then the conditions were identical. The only variable was how we used that authority to bring this project to fruition. And I'll tell you this upfront. On the day of the show, my half held up on stage, whereas hers didn't. But I want to be honest about why that happened. Because had you asked me the same question 5 years ago, it probably wouldn't have been the reason I would have told you. On my side, I had to say no, and a lot of that. If any team member suggested an idea that did not fit along with the vision, I cut it out. If any creative idea came our way, but it did not fit the confines of this project, I had to let it go. And it's not because of discipline. It's because 5 years prior to that, I had made the exact same mistake and I felt burnt out by it. And I had made a promise to myself that I'm never going to make the same mistake again. On her side, nobody heard no. Whenever a member of that team wanted to try out a new idea, they just got to do it. And it was all because she didn't have the courage to say no. She didn't want to be the person who shut people down. During this entire process, I kept asking my colleague, why aren't you making our vision clear to everyone? Why aren't you using the authority given to you to shut down ideas that don't fit the plan? And every time I would get some version of the same answer. I don't have a title. I don't really like confrontation. I'm not really in charge. I'm not the department leader. It's your job, not mine. I'm just here to help everyone, not to criticize them. And I would remind her that at the start of this project, I had made it clear to everyone that she had equal authority and equal say in the project, just as I did. But the pushback was still identical. But what's my official title? How can I do this without one? So I started asking her back, what would this title actually do? What would it change? If I did give her a title, what would she do differently than right now? There was never a clear answer, not even once. The question that I kept asking her, the one that didn't give me a clear answer, I didn't make it up for this episode. I've lived it, I've gone through it many times, and that's the question that's driving the story forward. So let's sit with it for a moment and think about it. Because it's not about the authority. The authority was always given to my colleague. It wasn't about the experience she had or the knowledge or the ability to make certain calls when it was important. None of that comes from getting a title. So take the title out of the question. And what exactly are we left with? It's just a piece of paper. And a piece of paper, a title, doesn't make hard calls. People do. That's the part she never had to face, because the missing title gave her some place to hide. And underneath all of this, it's not about the mechanics of leading. The core message here is that leading sometimes means being disliked, and she wasn't willing to pay that price. I don't want this to be a story about my colleague and about a project that didn't go well. I want this to be about the cost of waiting for a title if this is something that you are doing too. First, no one sees you as ready for leadership. Authority usually doesn't go to the person who waited quietly and played by the rules. It goes to the person who takes initiative and fills in the gaps that their leader perhaps has missed out on. It goes to the person who already acts like they can handle that responsibility when the time comes. If you are going to be invisible in the gaps, then you're definitely going to be invisible when the opportunity presents itself. Two, when a vacuum is created, it rarely stays empty. If you don't step up, someone else will and fill up that gap. And it's rarely someone who is capable. It's usually the person who is the loudest in the room and is willing to improvise without a plan. Now you are stuck cleaning up that mess that could have been prevented instead of being trusted to lead with authority. Third, resentment starts to build up. When there isn't a clear direction, people start to take it upon themselves to fill that uncertainty on their own. And as a result, team members start competing, they become resentful of each other, and you're left in the middle of it, facing all that friction, waiting for your leader to fix it. And four, when it gets tested, it falls apart. And you, as the person standing closest to this project, have to pay the price. Not because you didn't do anything wrong, but because you could have done something to avoid this mess in the first place. That's the actual price of waiting. Not for your leader, but for you. And this will happen every time you decide that the responsibility isn't yours to fulfill. Now that you've understood the price that you've got to pay for hesitation and waiting for a title, let's look at our framework for this week. Ask yourself this question. If you're waiting for a title to speak up, to take charge of something, or to make an important call, what is that title going to change for you? What will you be able to do with it that you can't do right now? And if you don't have a real answer for it, then it's not about the title. The title was never stopping you. It's about hesitation and insecurity. At its core, if you have the instinct to lead, don't let the absence of titles talk you out of using that instinct. And if you're stuck in that hesitation, here are 2 steps to get out of it. That framework is called spot it and check it. First, find one specific thing right now that no one's making a decision about. Don't be vague. Look at an actual gap, a boundary that needs to be set, a direction that needs picking, or something concrete enough that you can name in one sentence. Before you act, take it to whoever's actually leading. You're not asking for permission. Instead, you're being transparent and making sure you're aligned with your leader's vision and that you're filling in the gaps rather than stepping on someone's toes. You can say something like, here's what I'm thinking about, and I just want to be sure that it's aligned with your vision, or I'm not stepping on someone's toes or pulling away from what we had agreed upon previously. I just want to fill in the gaps and make sure that we are on the right track. Is this something that we can go ahead with? Is it okay with you? And that one conversation does 2 things. It keeps you aligned with your leader so that no one feels bypassed, and it makes your intentions clear. That you're not someone who is waiting for a title or hesitating to take action because they haven't been empowered enough. Instead, you're capable of more and you're not willing to sit around waiting for direction. Once you get that green light from your leader, you're good to go. You earned your leader's trust without ruffling anyone's feathers. You don't need a title to fill that gap. You need to spot the gap, check in with your leader, and then go ahead and fill it, instead of waiting for someone to give you a title and permission to go ahead and do the work. And that's what this episode really comes down to. the pattern that we've been talking about. Don't be the person who's going to take the easy way out, who's going to hide behind a title that needs to be awarded in order to get the job done. Instead, become the person who understands what the moment requires and fill in the gaps for your leader. Leadership isn't a title someone hands over to you. It's something you build, usually in the conversations that you're avoiding. If you're ready to do that work, write to me at yournotlisteningshow@gmail.com and set up a free discovery call. I read every single email written to me, and we can talk about what your leadership path looks like. This is Aubin, and I will see you in the next episode.
Listen a little deeper, see what you've been missing. This is You're Not Listening.